What's up, everybody? Oh, this side, I'm going to talk over here because you guys have like energy. What's up, everybody? There we go. Oh, it is so good to be here. For those who don't know me, my name is Kevin, and what's up, Leon? I'm on staff here, and my role is like the best role ever. I get to oversee sixth grade through young adulthood. And I get to oversee the staff that works within each one of those areas. So my main role is to work with the staff of Sanctuary and Fusion and Thrive and our student ministry and our young adults ministry. It is the best role ever. I used to be a senior pastor, and I got promoted to this job. It is awesome. Did you guys catch that? Yes, that's good. And one of the best things about it is I get to hang out with young people. So that includes you guys. And pretty much the older I get, the more young everybody else gets. So don't guess how old I am. Someone asked me if Moses gave me an autographed copy of the Bible. I'm not that old, despite what the Fusion kids say, but But one of the best things about it is I spend my days working with the most amazing young people. But they've done something to me over the last like 7 or 8 months. And it's manifested in this really weird way. And it really became apparent yesterday. I sent a text. And the text didn't have any punctuation in it because it's been brought to my attention that punctuation in text doesn't mean what you think it should mean. Some of you are confused. Is that me? It's my manly beard that's causing problems. Anyways, because I came into the office, and I won't say what staff member it was, but someone's like, hey, are you mad at me? And I'm like, what? They're like, well, your text, your response. I was like, what? He said, the way you responded to the text, I thought you were mad at me. I'm like, how did I respond to my text? And they asked me a question, and I said, okay. But apparently, okay doesn't mean okay if there's a period at the end of it. And they're like, because you said, okay, period. And I said, yeah. And they're like, well, I thought you were mad at me. I'm like, what? It meant that the sentence was over. And I said, do you think that about like other things too? And they're like, yeah. And then someone else in the office who's also a young person was like, yeah, totally. And the other day you answered the text by, how are you doing today? And I said, good. Period. And so I thought I did something wrong. And I'm like, wait a minute. And so then I got all the staff together, and I'm like, do you all think this way? Is there some secret code to passive-aggressive punctuation that I don't know about? And apparently there is. I don't know who's teaching it. I don't know which TikTok tutorial is out there that's leading you guys. I've been praying for months. Why is this generation filled with anxiety? I think I found it. You guys are like analyzing everything. How are you doing? Good, period. Uh-oh. Oh, what do they mean by that? I'm in trouble. Apparently, my daughter sent me a text a couple weeks ago, and I was like, and I didn't even have the time to say, okay, period. So I just said, K. See, you all know it. So now apparently I'm becoming as neurotic as all of you, because yesterday I sent someone a text. I'm like, I don't want them to think that I'm mad at them or happy with them. And I have to tell you, I'm not going to end every sentence with 3 exclamation points because I'm afraid of what you'll think of it. So I'm just eliminating punctuation altogether. Is that okay? All right. Lord, help this generation. Here's the deal. Do you know why that's important? And I found myself, I didn't even think about it, sending text without punctuation. Here's a reality. You ready for a spiritual principle wrapped up in neurotic texting? Ready it is? You will become like those who you spend time with. You will become like those who you spend time with. Whoever you surround yourselves with, whoever you're spending the most time with, you are becoming like them, sometimes without even knowing it. For some of you, that's like really good. Oh, I love the people I spend time with. And others, you're like, oh man, I got to find a new group. Why is that important? Because we're about to start and embark on the Being Like Jesus challenge. And we're going to look over the next 40 days. Some of you guys, you're at the books, or we're going to just be part of this series as we preach through and talk through and look at some spiritual habits that Jesus had in his life. That if we engage in these habits, it will help us to be like Jesus, to become like Jesus, and to look at the life of Christ. But can I tell you that it's really important that as we start this series, I just want to start from the beginning, is to say that the spiritual principles, you will become like those who you spend time with. The same is true for becoming and being like Jesus. Like you can do these habits, and these habits are really, really good. But if you just do these habits haphazardly, if you just think, hey, I got 40 days, if I do these things, I do this challenge, I'll get through. But the reality is, if you want to be like Jesus, it's not just these habits as like, like working out or like eating the right foods or like texting without punctuation as an intentional way of communication. No, these habits are only powerful because they're a place where the reality is that being like Jesus comes from being with Jesus. Being like Jesus comes from being with Jesus. These habits are as powerful as tools as they can be if we are being with Jesus in those habits, the way that Jesus was with the Father with these habits in his life. We will become like Jesus. We will be like Jesus when we start spending time with Jesus, when we are being with Jesus. But this isn't a new principle. This isn't a new teaching. In fact, it's interlaced into all of Scripture. And really, this is an ancient truth that you'll become like those who you spend time with. And we're called to be like Jesus. We're called to become like Jesus and to spend time with Jesus. And this was the heart of God from the beginning. So as we intro this series, I want to look at something that, a word that gets thrown around church a lot. And it's the word discipleship or becoming a disciple. But we're going to dive into it from what it looks like from Jesus' perspective. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to read through some scriptures, and then we're going to bring it back into context. So if you can be with me, and the first one is from Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1. This is the beginning of Jesus' ministry. This is beginning that he's going to call his disciples to himself. And look at how he does this, and look at what he does. As he was going along by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon, who later becomes, anyone know what his name becomes? Peter. He sees Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net in the sea, for they were fishermen. I love Mark. Mark's one of my favorite gospels. First of all, Mark is like the condensed version of the Gospels. He gets right to the point. There's no genealogies or things like that. It's like chapter 1, action, right? I love it. It's like the Kevin version, right? But I also love it because he's like, hey, these guys were casting nets into the sea because they were fishermen. I love that. Like, that's something like Kevin would say, something completely obvious. Don't say anything, staff. Okay. For they were fishermen. Verse 17, and Jesus said to them, follow me, and I will make you to become fishers of men. Immediately, they left their nets and followed him. Do you see what's happening here? These guys are fishing because some of you guys are getting it. They're fishing because they're fishermen. Simon and Andrew, and you can see in some of the other Gospels, there's another guy in there named John, which we'll look at in a second. that are fishing them. And Jesus walks up to them in their business, in their everyday life. He walks up to them while they're casting their nets and says, follow me. And their response is they left everything and followed him. Let's keep going. Let's go look at the next passage. Going a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who were also in the boat mending the nets because they're fishermen. Great. Someone over here, that was awesome. Anyways, they're fishing, they're mending their nets, and immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired servants and went away to follow him. What did Jesus call to them? The same thing he just given to Simon and Andrew. Follow me. They left everything, including their father and their business and their friends, and they followed him. Let's look at it again. Keep going. The next passage. This is from the Gospel of Luke. That after that, Jesus went out and noticed a tax collector. Well, after that, even though it's a different gospel, it's the same account, same day. He's called Simon and Andrew. He's called James and John. And now because they were fishermen, they were washing their nets. And then he goes, after that, he went out and noticed a tax collector named Levi sitting in the tax booth. Why is he in the tax booth? Because he's a tax collector. Great. And he said to Levi now, follow me. And Levi left everything behind and got up and began to follow him. Did you ever read these passages before and think to yourself, take from their perspective or with fresh eyes and be like, well, he's Jesus, so if he says follow me, they should, but they don't know Jesus. Why would Jesus come up to them and be like, follow me? And they're like, left everything and followed him. Why would they do that? Because Jesus is God and he's in the flesh. Did he do some kind of Jedi mind trick on them? Follow me. Okay, we'll follow you. No. These guys were at their business, at their work. He calls some fishermen and he calls Levi, and you'll see that he calls more disciples to himself, 12 in general. But why would they leave everything and go follow this guy just because he says, follow me? Well, to understand that, you have to understand the context that Jesus is speaking to, this is written in. Jesus was Jewish. Is that a surprise to anybody? Okay. That's the first thing. If you're taking notes, you can write that. Jesus was Jewish. And he's writing to a first century Jewish context. He's living in that world. He's living in that way. And for us to understand what's happening here and what Jesus is calling to us to do, we have to understand what they would have understood in this. So for that, I'm gonna ask for some help. So can my four friends who I talked to earlier come on up and stand with me? Why don't you guys give these guys a hand as they come up? If you guys would spread out 6 feet. Thank you for the illustration, but we got to keep this. We got to keep this thing COVID kosher. No, John, you can stand over there, John. Aw, he's standing over there though. Andres, you and Matt can switch places. Right. Apparently, Andres wants to be next to John. Okay. Apparently, the disciples obeyed better than these guys do. But anyways, so let me break this down for you, that these guys would have understood. Jesus was not only Jewish, but Jesus was a rabbi. And these guys would have understood the context and what that meant. Jesus was referred to as rabbi. In some of the Gospels, people will come up to him and say Rabboni, which means my rabbi. They were giving a personal title to it. That Jesus was seen as a rabbi, which was known as a teacher, but it was much more than that. And so I want to give you the context that this would have been Jesus' world and understanding of what it meant to be that way. The first thing is this, is that every young man, every little boy would have wanted to be a rabbi. We think of a religious teacher as if you can't do anything else, then you become a pastor at Sanctuary. But anyways, I was referring to me, Rob, not you. You're totally me. Sorry. Exclamation point. Okay, so these guys would have understood that it would have been the dream of every young boy. It would have been like making the all-star team. It would have been seen as an elite thing to happen to them, for them to become a rabbi. And there was a process for that to happen. But every family, every young boy, every family would love to have a rabbi in the family. That's a thing of pride. And every young boy would have loved to have become a rabbi. And so, because there was a process involved in that. The first thing is this. Is that every young boy would have to, by the age of 6, memorize the entire Old Testament book of Leviticus. Anyone ever read Leviticus? Not the most fun book in the Bible. Like if someone was like, hey, I'd like to get to know Jesus. I've been reading Leviticus. That's a tough chew. But anyways, they would have had to memorize the entire book of Leviticus. By the age of 6, they would have had to have the entire book of Leviticus memorized. And because there's no YouVersion Bible app back then, they don't even have the printing press. How do you memorize an entire book that you only have maybe at your local synagogue, if there was one there, or at the temple in Jerusalem? That would have meant that how would you memorize a book that you don't even have in your house? The reality is you would have had to memorize it from your parents. Specifically, your father. And most likely, unless your father was a rabbi, and most of them weren't, that your father's remembrance of the book of Leviticus that he had to memorize when he was 6 years old, he would begin to orally teach it to you. That's why in Deuteronomy it says, teach these things to your children when you're standing, when you're sitting, when you're walking, when you're laying down in the morning and at night. And they took that seriously. So they begin to make sure that every young boy would have been memorizing the entire book of Leviticus. So Matt's been learning from his dad. Now, if his dad knew the book really well, that would have been an advantage to Matt. If Matt was smart, it would have been really helpful to him. And at the age of 6, Matt would have come and been presented to the other rabbis in his region, and they'd start quizzing him on his memorization of Leviticus at 6 years old. No pressure, huh? Tons of pressure. And if Matt memorized it well to the satisfaction of those guys who were there who were going to be quizzing him on it, they would have said, Matt would have had to have been the best of the 6-year-olds. And if he was, he'd continue. We'll talk about that in a second. But most boys didn't get it right, especially if your dad didn't get it right. And if your dad didn't get it right, his dad probably didn't get it right either. You see what's happening here? And at 6 years old, if you don't pass the test, if you're not the best of the best, they would say, hey, you know what? You're disqualified. You're out. You're done. Sorry, ministry for you. You need to go back home to your dad and learn whatever your family business is. See you later. Rejection City, 6 years old. Thank you, Matt. Okay? If Matt passed the test, or I should say, if Chris passed the test at 6 years old, memorized the book of Leviticus, could answer the questions right and get on, he would have been invited to go to school from ages of 6 to 12. The school's called Beit Sefer. You can put it up there. Everyone, Hebrew lesson number 1, say Beit Sefer. Beit Sefer. It means the house or the school of the word. And so from 6 to 12, Chris would have not only just memorized the book of Leviticus, he would have been spending time memorizing all of the Torah, which was the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, another fun one, and Deuteronomy. He would have been studying it day and night for 6 years. He'd been memorizing it, studying it, being taught it over and over again. That was his whole world, memorizing all of that, getting it down. And from 6 to 12, Chris would have been memorizing it. And at the age of 12 years old, he would have been brought to another council. He'd been brought in front of him. And Chris would be tested not on just his knowledge of how much of the Bible or the Torah he knew at the time. It was given by the time he was 12 years old. You better have it down. So he wasn't just being quizzed on being asked questions to regurgitate information. They would have assumed that. He would have been tested on his questions that he would ask them about what he was learning. Because in a Jewish culture, it's not just regurgitation of information, it's how well you were thinking about things, how the questions that you would ask, and how you would ask these questions so that you just give an answer. How can you keep the conversation about God going? And the best of the best of the best would have done really well. Notice Jesus in the temple at 12 years old, wowing the teachers of the law with his understanding at the questions that he asked. Pretty interesting, huh? They were all in amazement. And it's interesting that while Matt had to go back to his father's business, Joseph and Mary show up at the temple, and Jesus, they're like, "What are you doing here?" And he say, "Didn't you know I'd be about my Father's business?" It's an important answer. And so the best of the best, Chris would have been quizzed on his answers and his questions that he would ask. And the best of the best of the best could continue, but 99% of those were sent back home. Thanks so much, you're disqualified, you're, total rejection, go back home with your tail between your legs, nice try. 12 years old. Now, the best of the best of the best were then invited, Andres, to come and to do school from the ages of 12 to the age of 30, and that was called Beit Talmud. You can put that up there, Beit Talmud. You want to try that? Beit Talmud. Talmud basically is just part of the Hebrew word for disciple. And so he would have been studying the entire Old Testament from 12 years old to the time he was 30. He would have been studying under rabbis. He would have been memorizing it. And by the time you were done with basically 18 years of study, if you were the best of the best of the best, not only would you would have to have your own rabbi, we'll talk about in a second, but then you would be quizzed again. And if you passed the test, you would have been the best of the best of the best, and you would have been presented publicly. And before you could become a rabbi, you would have had been baptized or had a washing to prepare you to be publicly put into ministry. But even then, even if you passed 18 years of your life, if you couldn't do what everyone needed you to do, if you couldn't pass the test, if you couldn't hack it in that school, you would have been sent home and rejected. Even by this point, you've been missing 18 years of learning your other father's business, and you would have gone home in shame. And so at the end of 18 years, not even if you did pass the test, you could finish and graduate and become a rabbi. But most rabbis, 99.9% of them, would have to be teaching the teaching that their rabbi taught them. And so a rabbi's teaching was called a yoke. That's the English word, that's not Hebrew. The yoke. A yoke was your rabbi's interpretation of the Torah, of the Old Testament. And if you passed the test and you became a rabbi, 99.9% of you had to teach your rabbi's teaching, your rabbi's yoke of teaching, and you had no other choice. Because unless you were the best of the best of the best of the best, the 0.1%, you had no authority, where the word in Hebrew is shmika. It means to be one with authority. And Andres, you did not pass the test. 18 years of your life. So sad. Go learn your father's business at home. And then there was one. And so if John passed all the tests and he got everything done, then he could not. He was a rabbi without authority. And there were really two schools back in the time. There was a guy named Hillel and another guy named Shammai. They were two rabbis that hundreds of years before were rabbis with authority. And now for generations, there had been no rabbis with authority during Jesus' time. That means that there were two schools. and you either went to the rabbinical school of Hillel or Shammai. And if you got through that all and you got baptized and launched out into your own ministry, most of them would have to teach either Hillel's yoke that he learned from his rabbi, who learned from his rabbi, who learned from his rabbi. And this would have been a big deal, that you could only teach what your rabbi taught. Everyone make sense? This is the system that Jesus was living in and a part of. And then John, if he got through, even if he had no shmika, he had no authority, he's now a rabbi. The first thing that he does is to go back to Beit Talmud, the two schools that were there, and he would, as a rabbi, look for the disciples or the students that had the most potential, the best of the best of the best of the best. And then if he found them, he would find 12 of them. And he would go up to each one of them and he would say, follow me. Follow me. John, you can sit down. Thanks, John. And when as a rabbi would say that to a disciple, then that would have been an extreme privilege. I've studied, I've worked, I've memorized Leviticus, I've memorized the Torah, I've been studying this thing for 18 years, I've been the best of the best of the best, and now someone has picked me for the potential that I show to become a rabbi, and I'm going to now not just learn from a professor, I'm going to live with a rabbi. For at least 3 years, the disciples would live with a rabbi, and they would follow the rabbi everywhere he went. They would listen to everything. They are not just trying to understand the religious teaching of the Torah. What they're trying to do is understand a way of life as modeled by the rabbi. They're not just trying to get some Bible teaching in there. They want a way of life that is the very embodiment of the understanding of the Word of God. And so they would have been with the rabbi 24/7 all the time. And in fact, this was a privilege. This was an honor. This was so amazing because you got to live with your rabbi. And it was such an honor that you would want to walk with your rabbi, literally walk like your rabbi. And it was known in Jesus' time that if you were a disciple of a rabbi, then the rabbi would carry a rope. And that rope he'd hold in his hand, and his disciples would walk behind him in a straight line. That rope would have gone from the rabbi's hand to the disciples' neck, to the next one, all 12 of them in a row, following behind the rabbi, walking in the pace, the canter, and the steps of the rabbi. That rope was called ahad. Can you say ahad? The English translation is in accord. And so they would have been walking in accord with their rabbi and one another. And if one of the knuckleheads got out of pace, guess what happens to the whole line? They get choked. They have to stop, and the rabbi has to help them now restart and begin walking. And if you were the student of the day, if you were like answering really good questions, asking really good questions, and your rabbi said, hey, you get a gold star today, you would have the privilege of being like the line leader right behind the rabbi, because it was an honor to be walking behind the rabbi. And this is crazy, that your honor and respect for your rabbi was so powerful that you wanted to be right behind the rabbi so that the dust of your rabbi would be covering you. And the closer you were, the more the dust of your rabbi would cover you. And something that we would say, well, I don't want someone's dirt on me. They would say, it's the dust of my rabbi. This understanding, which I've had really good people in my life, a friend named Matt Rudolph, who's a Messianic believer in Jesus, Lawrence Hirsch, who's a Jesus-following rabbi, another guy named Shane Willard. Once I understood the context in which Jesus says, follow me, it changed everything in my understanding of Jesus. Because I just described to you the system that they lived in during the time. But Jesus shows up and totally blows away the system. Because Jesus, being Jesus, by the way, if you want to look at this, have you ever noticed in Scripture that between the ages of 12 and 30 we don't have much information on Jesus. 18 years, he probably was living in the system. But when he came out of it, by the way, a rabbi, to start his ministry, if he had authority, he would have had to have someone as a witness to him. Starts out with John the Baptist, witnessing that John's the one who does Jesus' baptism, and he sees him and he says, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." One witness. Then Jesus gets baptized into his calling, and then the Holy Spirit shows up. 2 witnesses. And then the voice of God opens up heaven, and he says, "This is my Son in whom I love. Listen to him." 3 witnesses. And Jesus begins his ministry by moving as one with authority. He goes back to his synagogue and teaches, and they're all amazed. Even though Jesus grew up there, for 18 years he's been gone, and he shows up, and they say, "Who is this that speaks with such authority?" Because Jesus is teaching an interpretation of the scriptures that they in their lifetime had never heard before. They had only heard their rabbi, who got it from his rabbi, who got it from his rabbi. And Jesus shows up on the scene, and he gives the interpretation of the scriptures that he didn't get from his rabbi, but from his Father. And he's now about to teach these things with authority. And they're amazed. If you notice that Jesus, every time he gets questioned by the Pharisees, they're trying to trap him. They're asking him his interpretation of Scripture so that they can trap him. They can say, "Oh, he's with Hillel," or "he's with Shammai," or "he's teaching something completely wrong in that way." And they're looking to find out which tribe he's a part of. Is he with the Hillel tribe or the Shammai tribe? And they would try to trap him so that they can point the finger at him and say, "He's not one of us, he's one of them." Sounds like our culture today, doesn't it? Reading between lines to find out which tribe he was with. By the way, if you look at who he picked, his disciples, he picked some fishermen and he picked a tax collector. They would have been on political opposite ends. Because in the kingdom and under Jesus' yoke, as Jesus' rabbi, cancel culture gets canceled because he sees the call of God on their life beyond what they see in each other. That's a side note. Anyways, so when Jesus shows up with authority, this is both a confusing and a fresh breath of air. Because Jesus is teaching his Father's yoke. He's teaching what the word was always meant to say, with the heart of always. And even when he gets trapped, even when someone brings to him a woman who is caught in adultery and throws him before him, they're looking to trap him with this, because what's he going to do? Because in the Torah, it says that she should be killed because of her sin. But we've seen him hang out with people like this. We've seen what Jesus does, and we're wondering what this is going to look like. So Jesus, being Jesus, having the interpretation of his Father, knowing that he honors what the word says. And he says this, it does say in Scripture that she should be put to death because of this sin. But he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. And they drop their stones and walk away. Because Jesus is going, yes, this is truth, but the heart of the Father behind the truth would pull someone into grace and love and forgiveness. And that's what all of you should be doing. By the way, it's also an interest. I won't go there. Anyways. So Jesus shows up on the scene. He's just been baptized. He's starting to preach as a rabbi with authority. And this is where he would go back to the school of the best, of the best, of the best. And Jesus, with authority, could have picked anybody. He could have picked the most elite, well-learned, well-bred people. But instead, he goes to the shores of Galilee. And he walks up to dirty, smelly, uneducated, rough, primitive fishermen like Simon and Andrew. And he walks up to them, and James and John, and he said, hey, They would have known who he was. He was probably wearing a rabbi's garment. And he shows up to them and he goes, follow me. He goes up to Levi and he goes, hey, follow me. And I love Jesus because he wasn't just calling them into a position. He was calling them into a lifestyle of come be with me. Come live like me. Come receive from me. Come feel not only my understanding, but let me give you my life and my love. And he's speaking, not just, by the way, almost all the disciples were probably in their teens, and I can tell you why, but they are probably either teens or young adults, like you guys. He didn't wait till they were 30 and finished all that stuff, passed all the tests of human reasoning. He saw their potential as God led them to it, and he went to people that no one would pick. He went to the fishermen who no one would have picked. He went to the tax collector who no one would have picked. And he says, I pick you. I choose you. And why they left everything? Because he was speaking to the 6-year-old and the 12-year-old and the 30-year-old who's been rejected over and over again, who say, you're disqualified. You're not worthy. You don't add up. You're not good enough. You're not worthy enough. I could have anyone. Why would I pick you? And he speaks in their heart. He goes, I want you. I pick you. I choose you. Come live with me. Come do life with me. Come be my disciple. And let the dust of the rabbi cover you. And by the way, I'm not going to have line leaders to lord it over each other. Jesus treats them so well that they argue who's the best because they all think he's their favorite. Jesus, while stepping into the system of the day, he blows it away with the Father's heart and love. And he picks 12 guys that no one would want to invest everything he has into them. And then he looks at them and he says, I give you authority. And you'll do even greater things than me. The ones that nobody wanted becomes the chosen ones of God, to be friends of God, to hang out with God for 3.5 years. And then at the end of Jesus' ministry, he turns to not only the 12, but to a broader group. And he says, go into all the world making disciples, teaching them your rabbi's yoke, the way of living, the way of understanding the word through the heart of the Father. And that's why Paul, the Apostle Paul, who lived in the system, who was the best of the best of the best, who studied underneath the best, who was on the fast track to becoming high priest, the chief of the whole system, when he has an encounter with Jesus, he has an encounter with the love of Christ. He has the encounter of all of it. He leaves all the accolades and awards and prestige behind. And in fact, he writes about it. He goes, I was the best. I had everything you can imagine. And it's all crap compared to knowing the love of Christ. By the way, that's the literal translation. It's dung. It's manure. It's garbage. I don't care about any of it. I just want to know Jesus. Because Paul had an encounter with the risen Christ. And the disciples that no one wanted were the ones who gave their lives for Jesus, even after they rejected him towards the end. They were forever changed. And can I say this? The plan of Jesus as rabbi was not only to give them information, not only to model that for them, but he lived in their presence and in their midst to spend time with him for 3.5 years, that they would become addicted, not to the information, but to the presence of the one who embodied the message. To become so in love and so addicted to the presence of God that when Jesus went back to heaven and sent the Holy Spirit, they were forever changed by the friend, the man, their rabbi who was the most worthy of them all, but came and lived among them and loved them equally. That's our Jesus. So as we do this being like Jesus challenge, I want you to remember, no matter what the world says about you, no matter what you're posting on Instagram or social media, no matter what image you want, no matter what school you went to or didn't go to, no matter what job you have, no matter what your parents have said about you, or your friends have said about you, or the culture has said about you, or even the church has said about you, Jesus is walking up to you and he gives the same invitation that he gave to those 12 guys, and he says, I just want you to follow me. I want you to be with me. I don't want you to follow an example of a far off, distant rabbi from 2,000 years ago. I want you to spend your days with me. And I want you to be in my word, but I want my word to be in you. I want you to be covered with the dust of your rabbi. I want you to become so addicted to my presence because it will forever change you. So much that the disciple that Jesus loves, John, that's how he called himself. I love that. Don't you love that? Jesus' best friend, sitting at the table, resting his head against his chest in the Last Supper. John standing with Jesus' mom at the cross. He's the one who rushes to Jesus' side. He writes the words of Jesus in John chapter 15. Jesus says, abide in me, remain in me. You know what Jesus is saying? Be with me, and you will bear much fruit. Can I tell you, reading the book and doing the habits means nothing unless you're doing it with Jesus. Singing songs on Sunday means so much more when you're doing it with him. As your Savior and your Lord, your Rabbi and your friend. For some of you tonight, you've never known Jesus in this way. The one who comes and says, I don't just want to save you. I want to be with you. I want to love you. I want to hang out with you. And some of you need to hear this tonight. He picks you. He chooses you. And he calls you by name. This is a journey of being with Jesus and letting him transform us to being like him. We're going to end. We're going to show a video. And I want to give you the background of this video or it won't make much sense. It's a really cool video that my friend Matt, who's a Messianic believer, that is, he's Jewish by birth, but a believer in Jesus as Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. And he sent me this video. He said, Kev, you got to watch this video. And he knew what I was speaking on tonight. And this video is John, the apostle, the disciple John, one of the fishermen that Jesus picked to say, follow me. And this is John, who also wrote the book of Revelation. He wrote the book of Revelation after an encounter that he had with Jesus on the island of Patmos. John was sent to this island in exile for following Jesus, for proclaiming Jesus. And he was willing to lay down his life, and he was sent out onto this island where he was in isolation for knowing Jesus. And John on this island has this encounter, and in these encounters with Jesus, he writes the book of Revelation. But this video is John old, towards the end of his life, remembering John, the young guy who was following this rabbi, this friend, this Savior, this King named Jesus. And I love this song because if you listen to the words, half of the words are taken right out of the book of Revelation in this encounter, but the other part of it is John going, I love him and I miss him. And as you watch this video, you can let God speak to you through the video, or just if you want to close your eyes. And for some of us, we need to maybe have another encounter with him, maybe the first time, maybe the 1,000th time, but a fresh encounter with the God who says, follow me. I pick you. Come be with me. Maybe some of us need to look and to say, maybe we've been around church, maybe we haven't. We haven't been with Jesus. Maybe this is a time where we kind of evaluate and go, what am I doing with my life? And as he calls my name, am I willing to leave it, to follow the one who loved me so much that he gave his whole life and laid down his life as an expression of love and forgiveness so we can know him forever? So use this as a moment to connect with Jesus. Can I encourage you? If you're like me, it's easy to get distracted. And if you need this, there's plenty of room. If you need to move to be by yourself and just reflect with Jesus, can I encourage you to do that? To get alone with your Savior, your King, your Rabbi, your friend, and to spend time with him and to encounter him. And then we'll wrap it up at the end. Just want to bless you, and then we can watch the video. I bless you to know that no matter what you've done or what others have said about you, you have not escaped the gaze or the love of Jesus. And maybe what you have said or others have said or the enemy has said to disqualify you, Jesus says, I can forgive it, I can heal it, I redeem it, and I still want you. You're still mine, and I'm proud to know you. Come be with me. Come follow me.